Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace, my go-to for building a website and online shop. Hello my darlings, today's video is the second in my two-part series detailing my latest painting titled Afterglow, which will be displayed at Modern Eden Gallery in May. Real quick before I begin, if you'd like to see several hours of real-time tutorials of this piece, where I recorded voiceover as I was painting, along with hundreds of hours of exclusive content and monthly art rewards, feel free to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/happydartist. To quickly recap part 1, I tried a different way of starting this painting compared to my usual process. Instead of sketching my block in with paint directly onto a toned panel followed by a monochromatic grisaille, I wanted to try doing a wipeout, which is a technique taught at many classical ateliers. This required me to transfer a drawing onto the panel, spray it with fixative, tone the panel, then wipe away the lighter values while the tone is still half wet. I also scumbled in some white with a dry brush to enhance the value and texture of the highlights. After the wipeout was finished, it was time to start rendering my primary pass, also known as the main pass. This is where I try to get the painting as close to finished as I can using a window shading technique. I pick a starting point and then render outward from there, trying to be as detailed and accurate as possible. I usually pick a starting point that contains a wide value range, such as a section where a bright part of the subject meets a dark part of the environment. This way I can visually contextualize all the halftones in between. This piece was especially challenging because in addition to the main light source overhead, I wanted the mushrooms to have a soft glow similar to real-life bioluminescent mushrooms. So the mushrooms needed to be rendered like both a solid mass that blocks and reflects light, as well as a light source that emits light. A very tricky effect that required me to be extremely careful and precise with mixing the correct values. The light coming out of the mushrooms can't be too light, and the shadows cast by the mushrooms can't be too dark. And we really needed to rely on the dark black environment to contrast with the lighter values of the mushrooms. But the contrast shouldn't be too intense or abrupt, or else the figure and mushrooms would look too out of place. So yeah, basically the entire thing felt like walking on a tightrope. The color palette for this piece is also pretty simple and limited. I'm mainly sticking with earthy yellows, browns, and oranges. That's why it was important for me to incorporate a touch of cobalt teal wherever I could, just to add a touch of coolness to an otherwise extremely warm-leaning color palette. The lips and cheeks are actually made with cadmium red light and nickel yellow, which results in kind of a pastel orange. But because the surrounding colors are so predominantly yellow, the orange appears to be a cool reddish pink. This is the beauty and magic of color theory. Something doesn't have to be literally red to appear red. It just has to be redder than its surroundings. There are lots of times where colors looked very different on my palette than they do on the painting, which just comes with the territory. A good way to combat that is to hold your loaded brush up next to the painting so you can check to see if the color on your paint looks good before you deposit the color. Or just paint a very small dot on the piece, so if the color doesn't look good, it's easy to erase or paint over. Also, This time, I'm playing around with more cartoonish and stylized facial proportions again, which is super fun. There's just something about rendering a more contemporary subject with a classical realism touch that feels so delightful to me. I've painted so many mushroom-themed portraits in the past, and this one feels different from the rest because of the limited yellowish, earthy color palette and the overall simplicity of the composition. Instead of trying to incorporate a lush, vibrant environment, I opted for a simple black background so that we can focus on the design of the mushrooms morphing into the subject's anatomy. It's so weird to think about how much taste changes over time. I used to love complicated, trippy, bluish, purple, magenta concepts, and now for some reason I'm in love with brown and earth tones and simple designs. I wonder what will tickle my fancy next. If you'd like to see this piece in person, she'll be a part of the upcoming show Field Trip at Modern Eden Gallery in San Francisco in May. I'll leave the show information in the video description. If you'd like to adopt fine art prints, I have those available in my shop at happyd-artist.com. And of course, you guessed it, my eternal never-ending sale is still going on in my shop, so if you'd like 20% off your order of prints and originals, just enter the code HOLIDAY at happyd-artist.com. And if you're interested in learning more about how to paint and draw, I have lots of art educational content on my Patreon page, including exclusive video tutorials, step-by-step photo tutorials, live streams, podcasts, and even surprise art gift boxes. All available at patreon.com/happydartist. I'd love to have you join my Patreon family. A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting the art community. Squarespace is the best platform to create a professional website and online shop. Their beautifully designed templates are easy to use for beginners and look great on both desktop and mobile. I've sold my art through Squarespace for almost 10 years, and I can attest to the quality of their online commerce features, whether you want to sell digital or physical items. They also provide useful analytics that help you make the most of your online business. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/happydartist to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Also, if you want to check out more artworks, works in progress, and just random daily artist adventures, feel free to check out my Instagram, and you can follow me at the handle @happydartist.